Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Cancer Support Community Central Ohio's Lunchtime Learning. We're very thrilled today to have with us Carrie Hanosek and Kevin Walsh. They are going to be discussing charitable giving your way strategies to consider. So we're greatly appreciative of them taking time out of their busy schedules to share their time and expertise with us. So let me do my screen share here, and thank you, Kevin and Carrie, for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Darlene. Yeah.
So my name is Kevin Walsh. I'm a senior vice president with Merrill Lynch, and this is my partner, Carrie Hanosek. And I'm just going to take a couple minutes here and do some talk to you a little bit about what we've been. I'm actually the incoming board chair for the Cancer Support Community starting next year. So I'm excited about that. I've been a board member here for, I don't know, 12, 14 years, something like that, a long time. And so I'm excited about the Cancer Support Community. One of the things we're going to talk about is using highly appreciated stocks to use for your charitable giving. And this is one of the things that I've been able to do. I eat my own cooking, so to speak, with the Cancer Support Community. Myself and a couple other individuals a few years back that are on the board decided to try and help pay down the debt of the building. And every penny that I donated, as Deb knows this, came all from highly appreciated stock that had gone up, that I got a tax benefit from it, and also avoided the capital gains tax that went right to the Cancer Support Community. So that's something that I've done on my own. I do want to recommend a book that I read a couple of years ago that really influenced me, if anybody is thinking about this. And it was a book called The Billionaire Who Wasn't. And it was about a guy named Chuck Feeney that started duty-free shops back in, he's a Cornell graduate, in 1956. And Chuck Feeney has been referenced by many billionaires. Bill Gates and Warren Buffett is the example of giving back. Chuck has given away $8 billion, and that is with a B, $8 billion, and has only kept $2 million with an M, $2 million for himself, and the rest of it he's given away to charities. And I'm not suggesting everybody do that, but that book really influenced me. One of his tenets is giving while living. And so my wife and I have started to incorporate that in our own lives. And we've also decided what we want to do in the back end of, when we're no longer here, how we want to leave our charitable funds to, because we're not going to give it all to our kids. We know that varies for everybody. So that book is a great book. If you buy that, I think you'll find that very informative. I do want to. Carrie's going to do the deep dive on some of the different things you can do for giving monies to charity. And Carrie she has a CAP, a CAP, which is a certified charter advisor in philanthropy. So this is her area of expertise. And I'm going to give this to Carrie. I'm going to step away and I'll come back up for any Q&A that we happen to have at the end. Is that okay?
Sounds great.
All right, thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the attendees here in the room too. Happy to be asked to be a part of this, and thrilled to have a nice audience on Zoom. And what Kevin and I both really want to do is to have this be customized for you, the participants. So we can go on and on and on about philanthropy and different strategic giving ideas, but we don't want to do that if it's not interesting to you guys. So I like to actually just share some client examples, some donor examples for which we've been a part of. And I just was mentioning earlier that last week I was talking with a client who gives $50 a month to a nonprofit. And then my 2 o'clock meeting this afternoon is we're going to be conceiving of a $3 million donation for how to best strategically give those dollars. So we can really talk about lots of different things. But I kind of like giving this one example of clients that I had met with years ago that I had met at a charitable event, and they became clients. So I was able to learn their financial picture. And one of the spouses was making roughly $600,000 in income. The other spouse was making $250,000 in income, and they had one child. And so in my mind, because I had met them at a charitable event, I kind of had an idea of the dollar amount that they might be giving and wanted to talk to them about that to make sure that they were using those dollars impactfully. And when I asked them to detail some of their previous giving, they kind of high-fived themselves and said, we have been so active this year. And they named off maybe 10 to 15 organizations that they had given money to. And I said, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. This is fantastic. This is really, really great. Could you just please ballpark for me the total dollar amount that you gave last year? And they said, it's our biggest year ever. We're very proud to announce it was $500. And I really made sure I didn't have my face that I'm giving to you right now, or my mouth was on the floor. And I said, well, let's think about that. Is there a way for you to maybe, increase that number? Because all these different nonprofits are very important to you. And fast forward about 3 to 6 months, and we were able to open a donor advised fund for them. We opened it with very highly appreciated stock, and we started with $40,000. So that's a good example of they are now able to be more active donors. Just like Kevin said, they were able to get the tax deduction in the year in which they donated, but the fund itself is able to grow over time, and then they can grant out of that fund. So that's just a kind of a quick example. Full transparency here. If you happen to go on the Columbus Foundation Donor Advised Fund section of their website, you will see my family and me. It's kind of a funny story, but you will see that we are the poster children for the Donor Advised Fund for the Columbus Foundation. But okay, that's just a little bit of overview. We are happy to entertain questions. We want this to be interactive. We know that we all come at this with different experience levels and participation levels and levels of planning, but mostly just want to say sometimes this can be an overwhelming topic. Sometimes people don't even know where to start. And that's one thing we want to help you to do today, is just to figure out how to start if you have not yet, and to figure out to ask some of the right questions. So Darlene, if you could just let us know if there are any questions from the audience, happy to entertain those now, or we can continue to go. So Darlene, any questions yet?
We don't have any questions in the chat yet, and people are always welcome to unmute themselves to ask the question as well.
Great. Go ahead.
No, are you going to go into specifics like children or trust?
Yeah, I mean, we can go into some specifics too for what actual vehicles are that you could utilize. Everyone has a different situation. Everyone has a different life plan and financial plan. And I did mention the Donor Advised Fund earlier. One reason that people sometimes like to utilize that type of vehicle is because they then get their children involved too, and even some grandchildren. So it depends on what you're looking to do, but a charitable gift is a nice way to get multiple members of your family involved should you want to. And we have a client, again, other client examples of donors that when a child or a grandchild wants to give money to an organization, that the grandparent or the parent will match those dollars, or even multiply those dollars to a 3-to-1 level, for instance. So it is effective when families come up with giving pillars, because it's very easy to have 25 nonprofits or 25 different friends say, can you please give to this? Can you please give to this? Can you please give to this? But if you as a family determine your passion points, determine where and how you want to make the most impact, that can really make an impact with those nonprofits, but it also gives you the language for which to say, this happens not to be one of our pillars, but we support that you are trying to raise money for this. But if you give more to fewer organizations and actually get more involved with volunteering, then that's going to be your best level of impact. So another way to do it is, I happen to be the chairman for the YWCA of Columbus Endowment Board. And we sometimes receive information about future gifts to the endowment. We always want to have existing, daily living gifts, but the endowment gifts that are the planned giving, just a fancy way of saying you're going to get money in the future via planning, via estate planning. The planned gifts have been very, very beneficial to the endowment at the YWCA. So that can be where an organization is named in a will. That can be an organization is named as a beneficiary in an IRA. That can be a life insurance beneficiary. It can be multiple things, but you just want to meet with an estate planning attorney to get the most up-to-date vehicle options. There are other ones that are a little more complicated and a little more dollars involved, charitable remainder trust, charitable lead trust. But essentially, what we help people do is figure out how to even start and figure out what the best vehicles are for making that big impact. So
Do you want to spend just like a minute or two on charitable remainder trust?
go ahead. If you want to.
I thought you might,
Sure. No, yeah, either way. So a charitable remainder trust is, again, you need to work with an estate planning attorney and a sort of, a CPA. But a charitable remainder trust is a way that you're able to receive income and then the money goes to a charity at the end of a term. And it's all based upon IRS totals or tables. But it is a way that you can, even if, for instance, if there's a business that interest that you are contemplating selling, you could use a charitable remainder trust or charitable lead trust, depending on what the situation is, to be able to have a less of a tax impact upon sale and then benefit the charity with oftentimes large dollar amounts upon the way that the trust is structured. So there are ways that you can give your money now to an organization, or you're able to receive income and then have money go later to an organization.
Okay.
So essentially planning, it's all about planning. It's about planning now. It's about planning, continuous planning, really. We always joke that the second the ink is dry, then we need to continue to plan. So life changes happen, family dynamics happen, and just to continuously plan and to make sure that you are keeping your plan up to date. You wouldn't believe how few people we meet that actually have a will. And the statistic is shockingly low. It's something like 20 or 30% of the population has a will. So not only that, people will say, oh yeah, I have a will, but it's from 1985, right? So, a few things may have changed since then. So it's one of those things where we tell people every 3 to 5 years, just make sure you're making sure those are refreshed and updated. And of course, passion points may even change too. I have a daughter, thank goodness she's doing well now, but for a very long time, she's been dealing with a rare epilepsy. So prior to her health journey, epilepsy wasn't on my radar screen for giving, but now of course it's very much on top of mind and part of our giving strategy. So so anything else?
Yep. I will mention that everybody's got something that may interest them. And for me personally, I have sat on an endowment board for 27 years, and I've seen that grow from just shy of $2 million up to nearly $30 million. And that kicks off about 5% income. So that charity is now receiving $1.5 million a year. When we first started that, it was $100,000 a year. So for my wife and I've been adamant about that the monies that we leave behind on the planned giving is going to be endowment-like money. That is something that's very important to me, just because I've been able to see that. But everybody has whatever is important to them. We counsel with an attorney to try and devise whatever plan works for each person. So I think I don't think we have a lot more, but we want to see if there's any questions. If there's anybody in the audience that has any questions for us, please.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Right. My name is Nancy, and I'm 69, so I'm thinking about this a lot lately. And the other thing is I've had a will. It was nice to hear that, because I have had a will, but it's outdated at this point. But it's not as outdated as some people. So, but I do need to redo it. And I'm trying to figure out, and I also I inquired about the Columbus Foundation and got one of their brochures, and I'm dealing with a financial planner. So I'm doing all the right things. I just don't know how specific to get. Like, in other words, I've always been frugal because that's how I gotten to be where I am. And at the same time, I think I don't need to do that anymore because I am where I am now. So, I mean, how do you balance that?
Well, I think one of the things is, and we'll have Carrie jump in after me, but you've got to make sure that you don't give away assets that you're going to need to continue living. So maybe a mechanism then is planned giving makes a lot of sense. So, you know, when you're gone, that those assets work on your behalf. And I think for what if we're hearing you correctly, that might be a structure that might be more beneficial to you, is to do this on the back end. But again, you want to make sure that's spelled out. And it's funny you say you're 59, I'm 60. You know, my wife and I are going through literally the last 6 months is what we've been doing is getting all these mechanisms in place to make sure that if something does happen to us, that our kids don't inherit all the money, but the majority of our money is going to go to charities. And so maybe something like the planned giving on the back end would be more appropriate for you. But again, as Carrie's done such a great job telling us, is that it really depends on each individual. So you want to?
Yeah, and the only other thing I was going to add is back to the donor advised fund. Think of that almost as it's obviously a charitable account that you can put money into. You could even put money in annually. I believe the Columbus Foundation doesn't have to be through the Columbus Foundation, but I believe the Columbus Foundation minimum is $10,000. But once you get to that $10,000 level, then you can, you know, do a lesser dollar amount next after that. But if you do a $10,000 charitable contribution to a donor advised fund, which is exactly what it sounds like, you as the donor will advise where the money goes, but the Columbus Foundation owns those dollars essentially after you gift those to them. Those dollars then become invested and you can choose your risk tolerance on those dollars. But that $10,000 today, if for some reason you were not to grant it for a couple of years, or you know, say 5 years, for instance, that money technically has the ability to grow. So that 10,000 could turn into 15,000, and then you could grant off of that. The tax deduction is in the year in which you contribute, but between you and your financial planner, you know, that a number could be determined using highly appreciated stock is the most tax efficient way to do it. But a number could be determined that you could contribute each year, or one larger, you know, amount just to get it started. So, and we have an audience member here, located here, Marlene Cassini, that would like to add something. Go ahead, Marlene.
So what if most of my assets are in my IRA? What can I do with the IRA to make a charitable gift?
That's a great question. So the question was what to do with an IRA. Two different things. One, again, you could use the beneficiary. You could name a nonprofit as a beneficiary, but during your lifetime, with the required minimum distributions that are required at the age of 72 now, you can use some of those dollars if you should choose to if you don't need that income stream, you can contribute those dollars in a qualified manner to a nonprofit. Thank you very much, Marlene, for bringing that up. There is a bill in Congress right now where the required minimum distribution may increase to age 75, but I haven't seen what they'll do on the charitable side. But that bill hasn't passed. That's just in draft form. But as of right now, age 72, qualified minimum distribution can be used on a charitable manner if you do not need that income for your lifestyle. Thank you for asking that and bringing that up. Did that help you, Ann?
I'd like to add something to that if possible.
Sure.
And also if you do them where it's where it comes directly from your IRA to the charity, then you actually are able to deduct the entire amount on your taxes instead of having to be able to itemize.
Great. Yes. Very good point.
Makes a big difference if you make that a direct donation.
Very, very good point.
Comes off as a QCD on the front of the 1040.
Great. What else is on anybody's mind?
is there a percentage that they recommend that you set aside for charitable donations? I mean, is there I guess you have to do that on an individual basis, but is there a guideline there for that?
I would,
It varies to each person. Again, as I mentioned, as an example, Chuck Feeney has given away 8 billion and kept 2 million for himself. So again, I think the important thing is you've got to make sure that you have enough to sustain yourself. But listen, that can vary from, Carrie and I know we have clients all over the spectrum that they're very, very wealthy and give away tens of millions of dollars to other people that even your example is a $500 donation is a big deal. So it really depends on the individual and what your lifestyle is. And you said you were frugal, if I remember correctly. So you got to live within the constraints of knowing that you don't want to give away more than what you can afford to give. Especially, side note, with this inflationary environment that we have right now, where inflation is running, depending who you believe, 8 to 10%, probably higher. If you're buying a new car, you're buying a house, you definitely want to make sure that you don't give away too much. That's the last thing you want to do.
Well, keep in mind, I used the word was frugal.
Fair enough.
Darlene, would you like to show the Gift of Hope Legacy Society slide, please? They did not ask us to say this, but I just want to make sure everybody knows about this particular offering here. And happy to have you come up if you want to talk about anything about that, or
I will if you.
yeah, please. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Debbie Byer. This was also not planned for me to say anything, but we do have an opportunity for people to leave a planned gift, leave something in their will or through their IRA as a beneficiary, naming Cancer Support Community after you're gone. And the brochure that Darlene has there up on the screen is provides more information. And the funds that we receive from anybody after you pass away and leave money to us would be used to help the organization continue to provide programs that like this that we're doing right now, or all of the other programs that I know you have attended. All of you who are currently on the call right now have attended a lot of our programs. So that's, it helps the organization create a nest egg, if you will, to sustain the organization. And Kevin was talking about an organization that has millions and millions of dollars, and then they pull out a certain amount of that every year to help with the annual expenses of the organization. But that nest egg then continues to grow. We want to do the same thing. And so having people name Cancer Support Community Central Ohio in their will or in some other instrument that provides something to us after you're gone helps us create that nest egg and continue to operate on an annual basis too.
Thank you, Debbie. Yeah. Like Debbie said, that was impromptu, but I wanted to make sure that this was highlighted. No pressure.
This is not an effort to encourage anybody to do that, but it's available.
Right. Again, this is not a major ask. We just wanted to make sure that you knew about this, more of an edification. So one more thing that we haven't talked about, and this is more on the investment side of things, and this just by nature of the audience, you may have interest in this. There's something called impact investing or environmental, social, and governance investing, ESG investing. And one part of that larger topic is you can restrict your investment. You can tell an investment manager, or you can buy an investment that already does this for you, to not include certain stocks. And I have been doing this for years. Both of my grandparents, my maternal grandparents both died from lung cancer. And so I purposefully pick stocks that do not own tobacco companies. So that's just one example of a way that you can do it, not only through giving, but that's an entire other arena that we're happy to talk about, at a different time or with you individually. But you can do it you can do not only giving during your life, giving for plan giving, but you also can make a difference with your own invested dollars as you are growing your wealth too. So make sure I brought that up.
What's the easiest way for somebody to start on this if they have the desire? Would that be to name an organization as a beneficiary in an IRA or an insurance plan that already exists? But what would be the easiest and least expensive way for someone to start?
Yeah. The question was, what's the easiest and best way, least expensive way to get started? I'm biased, honestly, for starting with dollars that you're using, lifestyle dollars for while you're alive, because you can always plan a larger dollar amount or a different vehicle down the road. But I'm biased to getting to know the organization, getting to know the mission, getting to know being active as a volunteer, and then giving as you are participating too. I don't know if you have a different answer.
No, I think that's the right way to do it. And that's pretty much what I've done here is I joined the board, became familiar with them, and then I've continued to support the organization as time has gone on. So I think she's spot on the way to do it.
Well, I'll give you an example. The gentleman that I'm meeting with this afternoon, who's got the $3 million, he and his family have said, we have 4 different areas that we want to concentrate in on for our giving. And where do I start? So I have literally created a list of nonprofits for him that I'm going to be telling him about this afternoon, saying, here are the nonprofits you should interview. Here are the ones that you should learn more about. And so there are probably 7 or 8 out of all those different areas that I'm going to say to him, let's just start interviewing the executive director. Let's start to get to know the organization in a deeper way and start volunteering, start getting active on committees. So I prefer to know where the dollars are going and being used properly. That's the most impact. So it's more effort, but there's more reward. And, that to me is the way that I've chosen to do it. And people tease me, but I met my husband because we were volunteering at the Mid-Ohio Food Bank. So this is something that I am very active. It's not just lip service. So, thanks for the question though. What else is on anybody's mind?
What are the questions I should be asking my planner when I meet with them in a couple weeks?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think, the big thing is, what kind of amount can you give now if that is an intention? And then who do you want to leave it to on the back end when you're no longer here? And I think that's the process that I'm going through right now with my wife and our attorney. And, we really made us sit down and decide, which organizations are important to us. And I'm only speaking for myself. I think there's 5 or 6. We're doing anywhere from 5% gifting to 30%. So I think we have 6, maybe 7 different organizations we're going to leave money on the backside. But we're also have decided to, look, our son again, it's different for everybody, but our son just graduated from college last year. Our house is paid off. We've saved adequate money, and now we're starting to give money away on the front end too. So I think you need to figure out how much can you give away right now. Again, Chuck Feeney's phrase is giving while living. And then, where do you want to distribute assets, upon your death? And I think that's probably that's the best place to start.
That's good. That's good. That's what I thought, but it was a little hard I wasn't sure, but the wording of that, that helped with that.
Yeah, it can be an overwhelming topic, but it's just starting to learn a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and then a whole lot.
Anyone else?
Where else can you set up a donor advised fund besides the Columbus Foundation?
So the question is, where else can you set up a donor advised fund besides the Columbus Foundation? Most most investment advisory firms, including our own, Bank of America has one that we use, but almost every financial institution has something on their platform that is like that. And they all vary by minimums. I think ours is 25 maybe, but most of the beginnings are anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 is the entry point for most of these.
Plus there are others like community foundations.
Community
in
foundations,
Other counties,
Yeah, other
Like-
counties.
like
yeah.
Delaware Foundation, just
but also
Hypothetically
the
speaking.
Catholic Foundation, the Rotary Foundation. A lot of those also have donor advisors.
Great. Everybody hear that? The Catholic Foundation, the Rotary Foundation, most of the counties have foundations. So yeah, you can work, hyperly local should you want to also. And certain donor advised funds will allow certain investments and certain ones won't. So this is pretty technical, but locally here, for instance, they're going to have an investment team from 10,000 to 49,999. It's going to immediately go to Vanguard. At $50,000, investment teams come in to manage, and we happen to be one of the investment teams that manage for the Columbus Foundation. But other foundations, you might be able to have even like a business interest or a venture capital interest or things that are more complicated. Those are becoming more available. There's one in Kansas that we're using for a whole different customized situation. So you can shop around. You are the customer. You are the one with the charitable donor. So you don't just have to go with one that's recommended just off the top of someone's head.
I will mention one more thing, which is now we're talking about donor advised funds. One big advantage that you get from a donor advised fund that you may not be able to do with highly appreciated stock. Some of these charities are very small in scale. There's a charity down in Cincinnati that I found out about last year. I gave them $5,000 and they said that was 20% of their entire budget. They did not have, they help, they did not have in place an account to receive shares. So doing that through the donor advised fund, which was a much simpler process. So some of these smaller charities, not everybody gives to big organizations. Some of these smaller charities just don't have the infrastructure in place. So a donor advised fund is a much better vehicle to do that with. And the beauty of, and Carrie mentioned this a little bit, but the beauty of a donor advised fund is you can give money to the donor advised fund today, and you don't have to make distributions out of there for maybe a couple of years if you want. And that money can continue to grow as long as the market continues to do well. So you can make those distributions as little as you want to again, some of these outlying charities that don't have the infrastructure that some of the larger charities have. So that's one more advantage of a donor advised fund over just giving shares, which, that's what I do. But if not, then a donor advised fund is a great way to do that.
So what's the tax, the IRS regulation amount? How much do you have to have in deductions in order for it to itemize deductions to make direct donations deductible on a current year basis?
I don't want to tell you because we're not CPAs, meaning I don't want that number will change.
But it went way up, didn't it? Because in the last couple of years, didn't it go way up?
So the question is really about the tax deductibility of the donations. And again, that varies by individuals substantially. So that is more of in fact, one of the things that we do is when we're talking to people about, before you give money to a charity, consult with your tax advisor first, because everybody's tax status is different. So we can't give you a straight percentage answer and say what it is. But again.
And because there are tax implications, for instance, if you were, I don't think this tax law has changed, it may have, but if you were to donate a house that happens to have a mortgage on it, that's really bad idea. Do not do that. Do not do that. So that becomes income taxable, even though you think you're giving it away. So there are tax strategies that can there are donor strategies that can backfire. That's why we always say work with a CPA as part of that. But again, remember, people can give in kind. So I have a client who has earmarked a baby grand piano that's worth minimum of $100,000 that she's going to give to her church. So there are ways to do, and farmland, of course, Delaware County has I don't even know what the percentage was that they received in farmland, but Delaware County has grown its foundation based upon a lot of farmland. So there are non-cash, non-security ways to give to nonprofits too. Anything else from anybody?
Darlene?
Well, if anybody does have a question that comes up after the end of this session, please don't hesitate to reach out to Cancer Support Community Central Ohio, and we'd be happy to pass those questions on to Kevin and to Carrie for answer. So we have just a couple of more minutes if nobody has any other questions. With Carrie's permission, I will be emailing out the handouts that she had for us to use today. And we also have a evaluation of our lunchtime learning. Our programs are free, but we do have funders that allow us to continue to provide these programs. So please look for a link from me with the SurveyMonkey evaluation. And that evaluation will close on Friday, because we do want to show the funders the importance of being able to continue these programs. So again, thank you so very much, Kevin and Carrie, for taking your time out of your busy schedule to give us this wonderful information and providing us with this education. And I'm glad that everybody had a chance to join us today. And please look for those emails from me.
Thank you, Darlene.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.